Our show it's going to be unique.
You are what you do. You can say any amount of things that you want to say, but what you do is what everybody sees.
People are like, oh, I'm just going to JV it. Like, it's just JV it. Like, what the hell does that mean?
I cannot tell you how excited I am to hang out with you guys today, so thank you so much.
Well, then that end buyer could come back and say, well, I didn't fully understand that it was subject to.
That's not a thing. Like, the SEC has thought of all of these things. They've been here since 1932.
And you can do what you want with your property.
Buyers have time, they have negotiating power, they have options.
Oh my gosh, I am blown away by your inexperience, and they've been in business 20 years.
And that includes things other people put on your property, right? It's your property to be okay. Suddenly, cousin Jimmy's in a lawsuit.
A novation is replacing one contract or one obligation with another.
Out with the old, in with the new.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today, our topic is, are short sales back? I'm Andy Fowler, and I'm here with Sean St. Clair. If you're new to the show, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and X, and all of those you can find us at the handle @InRem Podcast. That's @InRem Podcast. Also, you can go to Spotify, you can go to Apple, or any of the other major podcast platforms. Download for free an audio version of the podcast. Go to Apple, leave a review. We'd appreciate it. It helps us out a ton. With that, we're going to kick it over to Sean, who has our legal update.
Thank you, Andy. So my legal update today is talking about title insurance, and in particular, making sure that your title insurance covers your limited liability company if you've transferred title of the property post-closing from either an individual name or another LLC's name to the current LLC that has title. So when you close on property as the buyer, a title insurance policy is issued at that time or effective as of that date, which basically insures the buyer to the transaction that they have good title to the property. Now, the key is there, it ensures the buyer's ownership or the buyer's title to the property. It does not insure a third party. It doesn't insure someone else. It doesn't insure a related company. It insures the buyer's ownership of the property. So the mistakes I see a lot of times that people make is they go and they buy a property. Maybe they buy it in their individual name and they own it. They live there, but then they decide, okay, I'm going to turn it into a rental. And they then move it to their LLC, and then they just continue business as usual. Well, it's not business as usual, because now you have a title insurance policy that insures you individually as the owner of that property, but now you've put it into an LLC. So what happens if somebody comes out of the woodwork and makes a claim as to your title, or you discover something adverse to the title, or you go to sell the property, or the LLC goes to sell the property, and there's some issue out there with a lien or title to the property that would otherwise be insured under the policy. And so you go back to the title company, you say, hey, my LLC can't sell this property, take care of this issue for me. And the title insurance company would look at it and say, oh, well, we didn't insure the LLC, so why is there coverage? So the key is to, when you're going to go and convey the property from either your individual name or some LLC that originally took title to another LLC post-closing, you need to go to the title company and you need to let them know what you're doing. Now, if the ownership is the same, meaning, I've bought it individually, now I created an LLC, and that LLC is owned by me or maybe my trust or something like that, the title company will basically say, oh, okay, we'll just do an endorsement, making the LLC an insured effective as of the date of that title policy was issued. And it's like $100 to do it. It's not very expensive, but you have to get that done. You have to get that endorsement in place. If the ownership of the LLC is going to be different, then you probably will need to update or get a brand new title policy, which can be costly. But you definitely want to make sure that that LLC is properly insured, especially if the ownership is different, because then That means that there's other people involved now in the transaction than who were originally involved at the time of closing. You want to make sure that their interests are protected. So you will need to go and probably just have a new title insurance policy issued effective as of the date that the LLC is going to go on title the property. But you can't just leave the title insurance policy alone and assume that you're covered or protected. You actually need to go and contact the title company, let them know what you're doing, and obtain whatever endorsements or title policies are needed to make sure that that LLC's interest and title to the property is insured.
All right. Thank you, Sean, for the legal update. All right. A couple of announcements. It is Tuesday. What does that mean? Tuesday at 2:00 p.m. Every day we have the Creative Finance Collective. That is this afternoon, 2:00 p.m. Arizona time. So adjust your calendars depending on your state. We're talking about creative finance. That's what we talk about. And we get together with professionals, mainly lawyers in the space of creative finance, to talk about what we're seeing, what different states are doing with respect to the laws of creative finance. And we work through our any issues we're seeing and try to make each other's forms better, but we're here to answer your questions. So the effectiveness of the creative finance collective really relies on you, the listener. We need you there to engage with us in order to ask questions. We're there live and we're free. You won't get that very often with attorneys, but we're there for an hour or until we stop getting questions. So if you've ever wondered or wanted to discuss some issues you're running into with creative finance and get a take from different lawyers from different states on some of those matters, we're happy to take those questions. In fact, we want those questions. So make sure to join us 2:00 p.m. Arizona time, the Creative Finance Collective. You can find that on X, Facebook, and YouTube. YouTube is the easiest way to interact with us on that, but we monitor the chat on all those. So if you post those questions, we'll get to them. Also, today we're taking questions in the final 15 minutes of the episode. So if you have a question, you don't need to wait to post it in the chat. Go ahead and post it in the chat right away. We're monitoring that. We'll collect those questions and we'll get to those. Any questions that you have for us or our guest on today's topic, we'll get to those in the final 15 minutes of the episode. All right, so let's get into our topic today. We're talking about short sales. Now, some of you that might be new to the real estate space, that might be like me speaking a foreign language. You might not have any idea what that is. For those of us who were raised during the great financial crisis, we have PTSD thinking about the short sales and in those years that we were working to get properties sold. But we're going to talk about that. With us to discuss that today is real estate agent and broker Matthew Potter. Matt, thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for the honor of being on y'all's podcast. I appreciate it and appreciate the invite and look forward to discussing short sales.
Yeah, we're excited to do it. Tell our listeners a little bit about you. How did you get into doing real estate, doing what you do, and tell us about your company, your brokerage.
Gotcha. So like many others, I actually got into real estate accidentally. I graduated in 2007, right when the world was melting down, and my internship that I was supposed to have was taken away. So one of my friends called me up and said, "Hey, there's this company up in Scottsdale. They are hiring. You like to argue with people, probably going to be a good fit for you. Come in and interview on Tuesday." So I did. I went in there. They're like, "Hey, we do short sales." I had no idea what a short sale was at that time, which of course made sense. They just hired me on the spot. And then like 2 months later, I had 4 short sales approved. From there, it snowballed. I won't get into all of it, but my wife and I, along with a couple other business partners, rolled out a nationwide short sale processing company. We still have that to this day. So we help agents, investors, homeowners in all 50 states complete their short sales. A lot of people can't believe the amount of short sales that we've done. We've actually topped over 19,000 that we've worked on now at this point, with absolutely no intent of slowing down or stopping anytime soon. So we also utilize our brokerage. Our brokerage is in all 50 states. I'm with Real Broker, and we have agents that are, and even investor agents actually for that matter, that are licensed in multiple states and in their states. And we pass out short sale referrals to them. And then we help them work their short sales so that we can do what we do best and they can do what they do best. And everybody ends up being able to get what they want and help the homeowner. And in instances where, you know, a buyer party is trying to buy for investment or whatever, they're able to acquire the property. So that's the 10,000 foot overview right there.
Great. Now, Matt, do you do any real estate investing on your own individually?
I do a little bit, mostly buy and hold is what I do, just because that's, you know, I had a large fix and flip arm for a long time. We shut that down in 2019, which of course was the not perfect time to shut it down, but I guess it was because we didn't get caught in 22. So that's good. But yeah, I'm very vanilla on the real estate investing side right now. It's primarily, hey, if it makes sense on a long-term rental, I'll go ahead and acquire it. Other than that, my focus has been and always will be short sales and helping others with being able to acquire those properties and work out those problems for homeowners and things like that.
So if you're a listener, or if as a listener, you're like myself, Sean or Matt here, you were around in 08 or 09 through about 2012, you might have heard of what a short sale is. But if you came into the space after that, I know the market's, been a little bit drawn out the last couple of years, but from 2012 on, it's really almost been an up-only market in terms of price appreciation. And so, short sales have kind of become a thing of the past, or for those that are new to the industry, something that maybe they would have just read about or learned about in a real estate class. But you were there and you're doing them now. So why don't you help our listeners kind of define what is a short sale?
Perfect. So what a short sale is, this is what I tell everybody. It's a mother may I. So what it is we're asking the bank if we can sell the property due to the current hardship, financial, the property condition, a combination of those factors. We're asking them, hey, can we sell the property for a lower value than what is owed on the mortgage currently? And that's a short sale in a nutshell. There's obviously a lot more parts that we'll get into, but that's just your basic, hey, this is what a short sale is. We're selling it for less than what is currently owed on it through all liens and encumbrances currently.
At a high level, what would you say the main differences are in time, processing, et cetera, of a short sale versus a traditional sale?
Short sale, there's nothing short about it. It takes time. On average, from the time that you take a short sale listing to the time that it closes, given current market, and I'm speaking for Arizona, other markets are a little different. We're seeing on average, it's 4 to 6 months. So once we have an offer, it's generally 2 to 3 months for us to be able to work it through the bank system and their process, for them to issue an approval, for the approval to be, green lighted, hey, all the terms are acceptable, and then go ahead and move it forward. On a traditional sale, if it's, priced appropriately, you're going on the market within a couple of weeks. Generally, you're going to have an offer. You have a 30 to 45 day escrow period, and it's going to close. So a short sale is going to take about double, maybe triple the amount of time from an agency standpoint versus a traditional sale.
So back in 2008 to 2012, Andy and I know you were involved in doing this kind of work. We did it obviously from the legal side, but one of the things that I know my clients would come to me and they would say, I've been told all these different terms and I don't even know what they mean or what they are. So, you had like deed in lieu of foreclosure, short sale, loan modification, et cetera. Forbearance was another one. And the two big ones that were really out there were short sale and loan modification. And basically somebody kind of had to decide between the two normally. What exactly is the difference between, say, a short sale and a loan modification?
On a very simplistic level, one is a liquidation and one is a retention. So if a homeowner is in a situation where they want to stay in the home and they have the financial ability given their current circumstance, that's the biggest thing right there. If you're unemployed and or maybe you're an investor that's working with a seller and they're unemployed and they haven't had a job in 2 years, the likelihood they're going to get a loan modification is extremely slim because you can't modify the loan to zero. It doesn't work that way. So loan modification is for someone that maybe hit that, just a rough patch in their life, maybe lost their job, got sick, but ultimately healed and they're back to work and things like that. That is a situation where a loan modification is probably going to be the most beneficial tool that's there for them. The short sale is for the client who, has been unemployed for, 6 months, a year. They have no prospects. Maybe they had to relocate for a job. We see this one a lot, unfortunately. Maybe someone passed away, a divorce, something of that nature. Those are situations where, independently, each household can't sustain those bills for that house. That's when a short sale, liquidation option makes sense to pursue.
Now, Matt, having been through the great financial crisis, my recollection is, the short sale was this theoretical concept. There were no processes and procedures that the banks had in place, that realtors had in place, agents, what have you. And throughout those years, it kind of got set in stone and the processes got faster and better. Banks and all sides of the transaction got better at doing it. And right when they were at their best, the market, turned and we didn't need to do short sales anymore. I'm curious, kind of jumping forward 10 plus years as short sales have started to, as you started to add those back in and do more of those, has the process with the banks been as seamless as where we left it, or did it kind of need to start over again?
They need to learn to ride the bike again. They do. It's very interesting for those of us that were involved during the Great Recession. And, one of the big things that everybody had to complain about was there was no uniformity across the board with mortgage servicers. Wells Fargo did it a certain way. Chase did it a certain way. B of A did it a certain way. That part they've kept consistent. Everybody does it different. Even if it's, hey, this is an FHA loan, a VA loan, a USDA loan, everybody has a different protocol. I'll give you a perfect example. FHA has what's known as the pre-foreclosure sale process. They issue what's known as an approval to participate, where it's like, hey, you're able to market at X dollars for 30 days, then drop it down, then drop it down. It gives you a clear-cut path. It does. Here's the beautiful thing. Depending on what bank, they're going to say, oh, we're not giving that to you until you have an offer. And then other ones will say, no, you're supposed to send over your listing docs right away so we can get the appraisal ordered so we can do that. And then you'll have other ones that say, we don't even participate in short sales, even though it's an FHA loan. It's literally a government mandated liquidation model. And it's just every day I hear something new and I'm just like, oh, okay. So this part hasn't changed at all in the last 17 years. Fantastic. Okay. And that is one of the things that we run into. They're doing the best they can with what they have there. Similar to us, a lot of the people that are working at the banks now, they weren't there during 2007 through 2012. So they don't understand, what do you mean we're going to sell a house for less than what's owed on it? What do you mean we would do this? Some banks, like your really small servicers, they don't even understand that a short sale is an option. I had to write a letter to one of them and say, this is what the process is. Please review it. And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. We'd rather do that than go to foreclosure. And I'm like, I'm writing my own approval letters in 2024. This is amazing.
So have you seen an uptick in short sales over, say, the last 12 months, roughly?
Yeah. Going back to June of 22, I originally said in June of 22, when interest rates started to rise, I said, mark my words, short sales and distressed sales will come back. There'll be some bank sales and some short sales. And I would say 99% of the real estate community laughed at me and said, absolutely not. You're wrong. We're on a rocket ship to the moon. And I said, yeah, I saw the rocket ship in '06. I know where it's headed. It comes back to earth. I promise you it does. Um, I'll put it in perspective for you. In 2022, at the very beginning, I had one short sale listing. As of today, I have 65 that are active here in Arizona. So I mean, that's a decent increase right there. That being said, I would say right now I'm probably averaging probably 1 to 2 conversations a day. I would say I'm probably listing 2 to 3 a week on the short sale side right now in Arizona, which, it sounds like a lot, and it is to an extent. But I mean, when you're thinking about 20,000 active listings, it's still a pretty small group. But all it takes is a small group to become a larger group and a larger group, and that's what happens.
Are you seeing any patterns as far as the loan closing dates or purchase closing dates where, they're more likely to be in the short sale situation over, say, some other year's dates type of thing?
I would say everything from, if I'm being completely honest, I would say from February, March of 22 to present. Anybody that bought with like a low equity or with a low down payment or no down payment program, there's probably a good chance, especially if they're in an outerlying area, there's probably a good chance that they may be a short sale candidate or maybe a candidate of, hey, look, I want to sell, but I'm not able to sell because of the position I'm in. A lot of the people that bought new builds during that period from about the beginning of 22 through about the middle of 23, because you got to think about a new build. Those take 6, 9, 12 months to complete, and you're already locked in on a previous price. So a lot of people that bought those, they're going in, they're going in with a high price and unfortunately the higher interest rate during that time when it was increasing. So like a lot of your Coolidge, Florence, Maricopa, Buckeye, areas where there's new builds that are being built. A lot of those, 480 is what they closed on in August of 22. 320 is what we shorted it for in, April of 24. So, I mean, that's a pretty dramatic drop. It is.
Now, yeah. So one of the big questions, of course, is why? Why are we seeing what we see, and what comparisons can we draw? So much of the time, and I know that the different. I don't mean to compare now to the great financial crisis. They're not the same thing, but a lot of the folks that we would meet with then, and I think Sean could probably attest to this as well. Certainly, some of them were in bad financial shape, lost their job, and it's the common story that you might find in every weird cycle. But the price movement on real estate was so aggressive the last time, so aggressive that people were underwater by half.
Yep.
In what seemed to be, I know it wasn't overnight, but it seemed to be overnight. Like one day you looked and you're like, okay, my $600,000 home that I purchased is worth like 2 or 3, and it's like overnight. And so we'd meet with a lot of folks that maybe didn't lose their job, weren't in a terrible financial position, but kind of had the mindset of, I'm never in my lifetime going to see this house be what it was worth when I bought it. So I might as well just kind of move on. How is that dynamic now? Is the folks that you're meeting with, I would imagine that the issue now is, like you mentioned, high borrowing costs and high prices and high and expensive real estate at the same time. It's just hard to maybe maintain that payment over a period of time. Are the dynamics that the consumer is experiencing, do they feel different as to the last time around? What have you seen?
It's really weird. I kid you not. I was thinking about this morning while I was on my walk. I was out strolling around doing 1.5 miles in the neighborhood, and it's the more things change, the more they stay the same. And what I mean by that is during 06, 07, we were fueled by, if you think about it, cheap debt. And when I say cheap debt, I mean 100% financing, 125%,
Mm.
things like that. Like, my house cleaner made $800 a month and she got approved for $1 million mortgage. Let's be honest, that shouldn't happen, but it did. This go round, if you think about it, it is similar because we were having all that appreciation because of cheap debt. We have 2-3% borrowing costs. Even everything sub 5%, I think we would agree is historically a pretty good borrowing cost.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Once it shot up, you had those people that were caught in that net of 5% to 7%, where maybe they were buying a new build or maybe they hadn't realized what was happening with the market yet. And they said, oh, it's not a big deal. I'll go in there. Under a worst case, I'll just resell my house later. It's not a big deal. That was the big thing that we always had in 07, 08. Well, I'll just resell it in 3 months and make 50 grand. Who cares? You saw a lot of that in 22 with people as well. And then all of a sudden, obviously the brakes got pumped and, we stopped. The one thing that is very similar, and again, the story doesn't change here, is it's the economy as a whole. It always is the economy as a whole. That's what drives it. The people that I'm meeting with now they're living paycheck to paycheck. Everybody is. There's nobody that's sitting there on $100,000 of savings being like, hey, I got to do a short sale. These, most of the people that I'm meeting with, they're sitting there looking at it. They're one emergency away from bankruptcy, if I'm being completely honest. I got people that are way over leveraged and, it's hard to make ends meet. And when you're sitting there trying to fork out for, a entry level home with where you're at right now, $3,000 to $3,500 a month, plus you got food, plus you got gas, average car payments, $800 a month. It's hard. Like, it is hard to make it go forward. So the economy has really put a strain on people of being able to, and a lot of them are just throwing up their hands and being like, look, why would I continue to make this payment? And this is very reminiscent of 07. I know you guys heard this a million times. Why would I continue to make this payment at $3,500 when I can go rent for $2,400 down the street, the same house? I have no taxes, no insurance, no HOA, and no maintenance. It makes sense to go rent that. So that's what I'm hearing continuously from people. And then one of the other things is you have your people that are on the market and they're trying to sell and they're trying to get out and trying to scrape by, and they can't just because of where the market is. They can't. And those people fall into two buckets. They either end up on my desk and we're doing a short sale, or they end up as canceled and temporarily off market and expired, which something interesting because I'm a numbers guy. I look at numbers all day. From June of last year to June of this year, the amount of canceled and expireds in the MLS quadrupled from what it was the previous 12 months. That tells you people can't sell. There's no equity there. So they have to sit, they got to stay put, or they have to short it, or they have to, foreclose, whatever it may be.
So let's then kind of talk about what a short sale means as far as future prospects for purchasing, things like that, because those people who are sitting there saying, well, I guess I'm just going to write it out. My house didn't sell. I don't have equity, and I'm just going to see where the market goes. Well, what if they came back to you and said, well, let's do a short sale? What are their prospects looking like as far as, effect on their credit, future, purchasing power, liability on the loans, those types of things? What does that look like when somebody completes a short sale? So
I'll always give my little disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a CPA, but you guys are lawyers, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. No, right now, it is pretty clear cut what the bank's going to do, what the intentions are, and then what your effects afterwards are, which is nice. That part is, there's no ambiguous, maybe the bank's going to do this, maybe they're not going to do this. We don't know. With regards to the short sales, unless it's like a very specific loan type, like a home equity line or something of that nature, across the board, all 50 states, the banks are giving release of deficiency, which is nice. Like there's no more, hey, guessing game there. It's a hard template approval letter from all the major servicers, which is good. That's a great thing. It incentivizes a seller to say, cool, I'm not going to be, they're not going to come pursue $100,000 from me. The other thing that's really nice is CARES Act. We all remember that wonderful bill that spent a lot of money, right? CARES Act has a provision in it. As long as you complete a short sale, a deed in lieu, a loan mod, or foreclosure for that matter, prior to January 1st of 2026. This is right on irs.gov, so this isn't me maybe interpreting it right. If it's a qualified principal residence, there's no tax on that discharge debt, which is great. Like, let's be honest. You guys as lawyers, you saw that a lot. People would be like, well, and you'd be like, you might not. We don't know. Mortgage debt,
Right.
Relief Act wasn't extended. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. So you have clear cut, hey, this is what it looks like going forward. The prospects of purchasing again, and this is where, again, I'm a numbers guy. I just look at, hey, this is what happens if you stay. This is what happens if you go. Let's just use somebody in Buckeye that bought for $500 and their house is worth $400 now. Okay, let's use that as an example. If we're doing normal appreciation, maybe 5%, the amount of time it's going to take you to get to that where you're at a break even, you got to get $100K there. So you're looking at probably at least 5 to 6 years. You could have completed the short, and depending on what kind of loan you get, whether it's a VA, a FHA, a conventional, you could have been in a new home for at least 2 to 3 years by the time you're finally able to break even. So it comes down to what can you justify and what are you comfortable with? Because you're going to have a ding on your credit. The biggest thing that we see with people on the credit is it's usually missed payments. It's not even necessarily the short sale. That's the big thing. It's if you miss 18 payments, that's bad on your CBR. If you missed one and then it was settled for less than legally owed, that's the way that most banks report it to the credit bureau agencies. Then at that point, you're going to recover, and then you're going to be 2 years in or 2 to 3 years in, and you're going to be able to qualify for conventional financing.
So let's talk about that, default or missing payments. One of my biggest pet peeves was, during the recession time, were these agents who were saying, oh, you need to stop making your payments because it's easier for me to complete a short sale, or you have to miss payments. And there were even some servicers that would say, hey, you're not late, so you're not a candidate for a short sale. Talk to us about that. I've always taken the position of, if you can make your payment, it's better for your credit, and the short sale should still be able to go through. There's current short sales, and that's doable. But you have to determine, financially what makes sense for you. And, you're doing analysis of the hurt or detriment to your credit and that type of thing. Talk to us about that. Can you do a short sale while current, while in default? What does that mean?
So yes, on both accounts. So in default's pretty simple. Like if you're behind on it, the bank's trying to mitigate their loss at that point. So I guess for lack of better words, they're a little bit more, they're a little bit more excited to work on your transaction. Whereas if they're getting their monthly mortgage payment, they don't have a lot of motivation there. That being said, and this goes all the way back to 2007 through 2012, because I fought with FHA, I fought with VA on it. And, I fought the good fight. I did. And we were finally able to start getting them approved through imminent default. That was our key qualifier that we were going with. And imminent default is, look, I'm current, but I'm not going to be current forever because of whatever hardship circumstance that exists. I actually currently have one, without divulging too much on it. It is a separation situation, Neither party can afford the home on their own. They have a court order that they have to sell the property. They're current though. because they don't want to, they don't want to hurt their credit. The bank has come back and said, yeah, we're not approving it without a missed payment. And I'm like, we have the exact offer you guys want. We have the exact net that you want. We've done everything to comply with this. There's imminent default that is there. Go to HUD, go to HUD and show them this and get us the approval that gives us the exception. I'm like, I know it can be done because we've done it before. So can it be done? Yes. But similar to your point, Sean, that you just said, I always let people know, do whatever you're capable to do within your financial means. I understand if it's the difference between putting food on the table for your kids and making your mortgage payment. Look, I'm a father of 5. I know which one I'm doing. Like, it's the kids are going to eat. Like, they're going to eat before the mortgage gets paid. It's just the way that it is.
Speaking of making payments, where does a homeowners association fit in with all of this? You have to get the lender approval. Well, what happens to the HOA dues? What kind of negotiations have to take place with HOAs?
So those are again, I'm a weird breed. Like I don't know. I'm a weird duck, I guess. I love when there's a messy HOA that's attached to it, along with, first mortgage, it's underwater. All it is it's just you're negotiating with another lien holder. That's all that it is. Yeah. And with regards to, I'll give you an example. We had one over in Surprise. And again, it depends on servicer and it depends on who's guaranteeing that back end paper. If it's FHA, VA, a private investor, whatever it is. They were behind, I want to say they were behind like $9,800 on their HOA. And they're 130 underwater on their primary mortgage. And I was like, this is a file built for a short sale right here. We went with the bank. We were working on everything. We got everything, worked out. The HOA, they're like, well, we don't want to pay $9,800 to the HOA. And I'm like, understandable, but it's there. And, they're in process of trying to foreclose on this as well. So once that happens, what are you guys going to do? And they're like, well, yeah, no, that would change it. And I'm like, why don't we just pay them? They're done. You guys are getting your net. Isn't that what's most important as the lender? You've mitigated the loss for VA. We've made everybody happy. So in that instance, they ended up paying the whole HOA. In another instance that I have right now, which this one's a pretty messed up situation. It was a property that was supposedly foreclosed on by B of A back in 2011, but they didn't. So the HOA is $30,000 in arrears. Yeah, it's a fun one. This one I'm having a lot of fun with. I'm not going to lie. I'm having fun with it. The Fannie Mae backs that primary mortgage on the property. And they said, hey, we're only going to give $600 to the HOA. And I was like, yeah, that's clearly not going to work. We need more than that. And the HOA was like, look, we'll come down, but we're not coming down to $600. Right now, I have Fannie giving them, I think, $7,200, and they're down to $13,000. So I'm bridging the gap. I'm getting there. I just got to get that last push where maybe I can get the buyer to come up with a little bit, to go ahead and close it. So HOA does add another level of complexity there. But to me, it's very, similar to the 07, 08. We had to negotiate the HOAs then. It's almost like the second liens that, got charged off to some ends of the earth where we were trying to find them. And we're like, okay, we're just trying to give you guys money. Can you respond to us?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I experienced with my clients and HOAs, and this wasn't so much post short sale because normally it's all negotiated out in the short sale, but post foreclosure where clients tried the short sale, maybe it didn't work, whatever, or they just decided to walk away. And what I saw was they just walked away from everything, including their HOA assessments. Well, as you know, in Arizona, we have anti-deficiency statutes. And so when the lender foreclosed, they didn't owe any further money to the bank, even though the bank, lost their shirt in the deal. But 2 years later, they end up with a lawsuit from their HOA for all of the past due assessments. And of course, they hadn't met with me before because I would have told them pay their HOAs. Talk to us. Why is it if a homeowner had to choose to miss a payment, they should miss the mortgage and not the HOA, correct?
Yeah. So when I sit down with people, I let them know again, like I understand everybody's financial situation is different and, you might be super tight on money. I let them know, hey, look, if the property goes through foreclosure, let's say that we're not successful on the short sale side, that mortgage, in Arizona, unless it's a very unique situation, we all know there's very unique ones where anti-deficiency doesn't exist there. I let them know, hey, look, it's a VA loan. It's guaranteed. They're going to go ahead and wipe the slate clean, have a good day. Your HOA is not going to be forgiving. That's a personal debt obligation right there. It's no different than a credit card. It's no different than, an auto loan, something like that. They're going to come after you for that amount. And I've had people probably similar to you that are like, no, that's not going to happen. It's not a big deal. Like, I don't care. I'll just walk away from everything. And I'm like, okay, look, we've all made bad decisions in our life. I see that you're about to make one. So I'm trying to help you here. And they're like, yeah, I don't care. I don't like my HOA. They're mean. They find me for weeds in the yard. And I'm like, look, that's neither here nor there. They have the power of the law behind them. They will come after you. I promise you they will. I was actually referred over a homeowner, her HOA. It started out with literally the gate was improper. And now we're $17,000 later on this. And I told her, I was like, have you made any of the payments? And she's like, well, no. She's like, because they're jerks. And I'm like, that is not a reason to make your payment. I was like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm sure there's probably people at the bank where I make my mortgage that aren't the nicest people. I'm still going to pay the mortgage. I promise you I am. So I always try to let them know, hey, look, the HOA, it's not done when it forecloses. You want to make sure that you get that wrapped up and taken care of. It's very, very important.
Right. Yeah.
Matt, we're going to get into the process of the short sale, but before we do that, I'm just curious. I know you guys deal in more than just Arizona. We've been primarily talking about the Phoenix metropolitan area. Are there other hot kind of pockets nationwide where you're seeing an uptick in foreclosures?
There is. I'll be honest, we see them all over because, again, we're national. So, I mean, I think last week we took in Connecticut, Arkansas, Indiana, Richmond, Virginia, not necessarily known as a hot pocket right now, but for some reason got, I think, 2 in from there. Phoenix is a big one and the surrounding area. Texas is a big one right now because of costs of property taxes, insurance, things like that. And then the other one, we all knew this back in 07, 08. We saw it, is Florida. Florida is experiencing a lot of, their market is very, very stagnant right now because insurance and taxes. Insurance probably is the biggest driver behind that. And then also couple that with what we were just talking about, HOA fees.
I was reading an article recently. We have a lawyer we've had as a guest from Florida, but the issues that the condominium industry in Florida has been having with having to reconstruct facilities or improve them because of the building collapse that they had years ago and changes in the law. The article I read, and I don't know if it was overstating it, but the cost to improve that has been so expensive in terms of increases in HOA fees that, residents are just trying to do whatever they can to sell to get out of that. And there's been huge price fluctuations in some of that. And it would stand to reason you might see a lot of, depending on when you bought, short sales in the condo industry there.
We're seeing a large uptick in the condos. Again, everything follows a pattern. We're also seeing it in your new build areas of Florida, but the condo association, when you're used to paying, I don't know, we'll just say $2.25 a month. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, by the way, we have to raise this to $900 a month. That's a brand new car payment that you're paying. And it's not like you're getting any technical added value into your life. You know, it's not like you have a new car where you're eliminating maintenance costs over here. It's you're paying the same bills that you've been paying, which of course that brings values down dramatically. It does.
So let's talk about the process. You've got somebody who is obviously in a short sale situation. We're typically talking about a distressed homeowner. They found themselves in this situation. Maybe they've watched this podcast, they've heard about it, they think this might be an option for them. How does this start? What does the process look like?
Always starts with a phone call or a consultation of some kind. Like I mentioned, I'm probably doing 2 to 3 a day. And it starts with a call of, let's see if this is actually a viable option for you, or let's see if there's other options that are available for you where maybe you can stay in your home, or, you know, maybe a refinance, whatever. That's the number one thing. From there, it's gathering the documentation that is going to be needed after we've had that conversation with them. So I know you guys, this is definitely PTSD for everybody. We need 2 months of bank statements. We need 30 days of pay stubs or a 90-day P&L. We need 2 years of tax returns. And then you have your short sale package, all the bank's documents, which that's another beautiful thing. Even though they streamlined everything, or well, they attempted to streamline everything, every bank has different forms still. It's the worst. It really is. You know, that's how the process will start. And then also with listing the property, you know, meeting them at the property, going out there and saying, hey, all right, given the current circumstance, the current condition of the property, this is most likely where we're going to get a ready, able, willing buyer. This is where I suggest we list it at. So like when I personally run one, when I get out there, I tell them, look, I'm going to need an hour of your time. We're going to fill out this whole package. We're going to get it all knocked out. I'm going to take it all, get it scanned in, get it over to my processor. She's going to get everything over to the bank, and we're going to go ahead and start moving this forward. So that's the initial first part of the process right there. And then do you want me to go through the whole process as well?
So yeah, so like once you've got that, now are you waiting to have all the financial information before you list the property on the MLS?
No.
Okay.
I've now gotten to the point, I know we did that back 07, 08 a lot of times. I've now gotten to the point where, you know, because back then it was don't submit anything until you have a full package, including an offer. That was kind of the big thing because the bank wasn't going to do anything. Now with some of the changes with the ways that some of the banks will work, as soon as I've met with that homeowner, I scan everything in. As soon as I get home, I send it over to Bailey. She's my processor. Shout out to Bailey, the real MVP. She gets everything into the bank immediately and opens the file and gets them moving on it. Because if that is one of the banks that will order the appraisal within a week, now I have a pre-approved short sale. Now I know, you know, I can speak with confidence to that agent, that broker on the other side and say, hey, look, 300 is an approved price on this. Yes, they will pay seller concessions on it, actually. You know, go ahead and submit your offer over so we can get it in front of them. We recently just ran one. It was the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen. From start to finish, from the time we listed it to the time it closed, was 41 days, which that's almost unheard of, as you guys know. Like that's unheard of. And it was, she submitted it. They ordered the appraisal 3 days later. It was back. We had an offer that was 100% of the appraised value. It was approved like 4 days after that. And we had our standard closing timeline of like, I think it was like 28 days.
So you're able to, it sounds like you're able to work through a lot of the negotiation that takes place with the lender right away. You don't have to necessarily wait. You're not waiting for a purchase agreement or an offer yet from a buyer.
Correct. In a lot of instances, we've now been able to bypass that. There are some banks in some instances where they'll still come back and say, we're not doing anything until you send us, you know, an offer. We're not going to order the appraisal. And part of that I understand, because say they order an appraisal today and say it takes me 2 months to get an offer on a property. It could. if it takes 2 months to get that offer and that BPO or that appraisal is only good for 3 months, they're ordering another one at that point. So it's kind of one of those things that doesn't make a lot of sense on their side.
Go ahead, Sean.
So what's the difference between the purchase contract for a short sale transaction and a traditional transaction?
A lot more addenda.
Okay.
So usually on that, the biggest thing is we have the short sale addendum, and then that outlines, hey, closing is going to be 30 days from short sale approval. In the event that the terms are not acceptable to the seller, we'll give you an issue of non-approval. If they are, we'll give you a short sale agreement notice or a copy of the approval letter. That's usually the biggest thing right there. And it's funny, like we were talking about at the beginning, even some of the old timers from back in the day, they have no idea what a short sale agreement notice is. Like, I send it out and they're like, what is this? What does this mean? Where's the approval letter? And I'm like, per my client, they don't want it released. That's what you need. Title has everything. You're good to move forward. Your contractual timelines start. And they're like, no, I'm going to call my broker. I'm like, please do. I used to do your broker's short sales. So I know that I know what I'm doing. And they're like, okay. And I had one that really argued with me recently about that. And I was like, no, just trust me. This is part of the process. It is.
So talk to us also. Have things changed? I would imagine they've changed somewhat in terms of how realtor commissions are being paid. I know that's kind of an issue, or an issue that has to be approved as part of the short sale process. But has that process changed given the NAR settlement that happened with regard to fees and commissions?
So I have a feeling, like anything, it's usually on a lag. It's probably about 6 months until we see some meaningful change on the bank side. As it stands right now, what we're having people do is, say you're a buyer's agent and you submitted on one of our listings, go ahead and give us the additional addendum that says, hey, we're looking for X amount of compensation. That's being submitted. And then when we get the the Alta statement, I have a standard template that I've used since 2007 when I'm emailing the title company of, hey, put this, here's, listing side, here's selling side, all that. It still goes in the email just the same, and it still shows just the same on the Alta. It's just a different order of operations now. And I think with the banks, and this is something that's really wild. Obviously, we know the crux behind, the whole NAR settlement and everything was, we're trying to lower commissions. We're trying to, all of that. The funny thing is, I have short sales where buyers are unrepresented, where they'll just submit an offer unrepresented, right? The bank literally comes back to me and says, hey, that's great. No, we want them to have representation. So either you rep them or somebody else does, and we're happy to pay it because we're not dealing with a lawsuit down the line. So nope, go ahead and have them go get have them go ahead and go get representation. We're happy to compensate them. And that just shows you, like, let's be honest, at the end of the day, banks aren't in the habit of losing money. They're smart enough to know we don't need unrepresented buyers coming to the table, and it's going to create the next round of lawsuits. They know that.
So once you've got the approval from the lender on the short sale, break down what the final steps are to close out the deal.
So once we get approval, it becomes what I like to call a regular traditional real estate transaction. At that point, they're going to have their inspection period, whatever, that time period is. They're going to deposit their earnest money if we didn't already negotiate for them to deposit it. And they're going to, they'll do their inspection. I'm going to be honest with you right now. Again, new breed of realtors. They don't understand it's as is, where is on most short sales. So they'll send me this laundry list of, like, the electrical outlet's cracked. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's a hard no. I'm letting you guys know. So we get through inspections, we get through appraisal, and then ultimately, get to the finish line with closing. Obviously, if it's an investor deal, it's a little bit easier because they're cash and they're like, when can we close? just let us know when the seller's ready and we'll go ahead and close the deal. So it very much becomes a traditional transaction after that first 3 to 4 months.
Speaking of investor transactions, are you seeing investors doing anything creative with short sales? Whether it's trying to figure out how to wholesale or, swap out ownership of LLCs or anything like that?
I'll tell you this. There's a couple that probably want to do that, I guess, would be the operative word there. I found that most of them won't. I mean, the bank's approval letters are pretty airtight on what they're going to allow and what they're not going to allow. And the big thing is, they still have the affidavit of arm's length that says, hey, look, there's no subsequent purchase contracts that would result in a higher net or anything like that. So I found most investors that are utilizing short sales, as an acquisition strategy for maybe good property, maybe they'd want to wholesale it, maybe they want to hold it, fix and flip it, whatever. They're adhering to what those, what those terms are that are there. Because let's be honest, do you think you're going to beat Wells Fargo? No, you're not. Do you think you're going to beat Chase? I mean, they literally have unlimited money. They're a bank. They're probably not the one to go to war with. So a lot of the investors that we see that bring transactions or that offer on properties are like, look, if I need to hold it 30 days to appease the bank, cool, I'll hold it 30 days. It's not a big deal. They're like, if I'm allowed to, close it 5 days later, cool, I'll close it 5 days later, 90 days, whatever it is. It's not a problem. I've built that into my underwriting on my side.
Well, Matt, this has been really good information. Really appreciate you taking the time. Tell our listeners how they can find and connect with you.
Absolutely. So couple ways. You can look for me on Facebook. I'm going to be honest, I'm tapped out on friends there. So Instagram's probably going to be easier. My Instagram handle is at Matthew Potter Realtor. And then there's a link tree in there that leads to all my sites. My short sale site, super easy. It's just phoenixshortsale.com. You can go there. You can input, your name, phone number, property address, and the situation. It comes directly to me. I personally review it and then see if it's a situation that we can help with. Again, all 50 states, happy to help. And I appreciate you guys letting me be here today. It's been fun. I enjoy talking short sales, as weird as that is.
Yeah, well, we again appreciate you taking the time. It's been fun. Let's do it again soon.
That sounds like a plan. Anytime.
All right, sounds good. With that, everybody, that is Matthew Potter. We appreciate him. Make sure to join us this afternoon, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good day, everyone.